Hey everyone, this content may be obscene and or explicit, so just a warning. This is just us being us.
That's the world we live in today. It's just it's weird, man. You
People
know
are
what I'm saying?
doing it, man.
They are. They are.
Speaking of current events, I saw um, your Walmart post on Facebook, and like
Yeah.
I kind of like was going into reading the comments with you and Andy or whatever, and I was
hmm
like, oh, this shit is gonna get interesting, but then it didn't. It kind of sucked or whatever. Not that
Well,
it sucked or whatever, but it just it didn't fire up like I thought it was gonna fire up.
no, I post that kind of stuff on Facebook and just to see like it's kind of throwing a line into the water, right? Like what are people that I care about that to follow enough to follow on Facebook? What do they care about, right? And some of them respond, some of them like, some of them might feel differently. Um, but when Andy responded, I hit him up in a personal message, right? Because
Uh,
i I value his opinion and what he's going to say. So I always want to know, like, all right, well, why do you think this way, and like what's going on? Like, let's hash it out before other people jump in and cloud up the real discussion that we're trying to have with Facebook arguments and
yeah.
stuff that sounded, like, I, the idea that we're gonna one of the somebody on that post. So obviously the background is Walmart decides that they're gonna raise their age to 21
Is
to
that
sell
official?
that. Yeah, they announced it. Like, that's a news. They said it in the news. Like, this is what we're gonna do,
They won't
right?
sell any weapons of firearm material, whatever, unless you're
So
21.
I believe it's AR style weapons. So you can still buy like shotguns and hunting rifles, but an AR style weapon,
I've never even seen an AR style weapon at Walmart.
it's still, well, I mean, you're still basically talking about a hunting style rifle, but because it's not in the misconception that it's an automatic rifle, it's obviously not that, but it resembles an AR-15, right? They said, yeah, so they want to raise that age to 21. So the difference is that Dick's Sporting Goods said that they're going to just stop carrying a weapon, like,
Yeah,
or that, right? They're like, we're just
yeah,
going
I
to get
heard
rid of
about
it. We
that.
don't want to sell anymore, right? Which, so I totally commend Dick's Sporting Goods for deciding, like, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to stop offering it, right? If you believe that this is the problem, and like preventing access to that style weapon is what the solution is, and you stop selling it altogether, like, that's totally within your realm of being a company, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's the country we live in, right?
yeah,
But you deciding that you're going to limit, who can buy it without legislation, without a law in place for that. That's kind of the issue, right? Is where I was going with it. So, um, I think that it's a pretty bold move, and I think it's really going to affect uh, affect laws regarding the Second Amendment and laws regarding equal protection under the Constitution in a big way moving forward.
yeah.
If we try to keep it, yeah.
This is kind of unprecedented, right? Because I don't think any other company has ever like been like, well, I know this company sells the same stuff we sell, but we're gonna change the age requirement for. I don't think that's ever happened before with any other kind of thing, right? Like you got ABC stores that say everybody has to be 21 in order to buy alcohol or whatever, but I don't think you know X ABC store and fucking wherever is like, oh yeah, not only are you gonna be 21 to buy alcohol, but if you want to buy vodka, you have to be fucking 25. Like I don't think this has ever happened before, right? I mean, I don't really know if it has or not, but it seems like it hasn't happened before.
That's kind of where Andy was what Andy was getting at, is that age isn't protected. However, it is. It's just on a from the purview of the Supreme Court, age has been protected in the form of the elderly, right? Because the court cases have been about employment, right? So if you say, hey, I'm not going to employ you because you're too old, and I know you're going to be collecting benefits, or you're not as strong or productive, right? Like, hey, you can't say that, right? There was actually a case somewhere in the last decade where a younger age group or person tried to sue based on discrimination of their age. The Supreme Court set this precedent that this age protection for employment only applies to older, not it doesn't apply to younger. So if you say something like, "I don't have experience because I'm only this old and I've been out of high school or whatever," right? You can't sue a company for not hiring you based on the fact that you don't have experience, right?
Right.
Well, you're right in that there is no precedent for a case like this. Um, but what Andy was kind of saying, I don't want to misrepresent what he's saying, but what he's getting at is that it's been accepted that we will limit access to things based on age, right? So drinking alcohol 21, smoking tobacco 18, and some states are raising that to 21, right?
Oh, are they?
Yeah. Driving a vehicle, right? Your access is 16 unless you have a hardship license. In some states, it's 14. And actually, right now, it's illegal to own. So the only federal law that exists that limits who can own a weapon based on age is handguns. So you can't own a handgun until you're 18 years old. Or sorry, I'm misspeaking on this. So right now, it's you can't own a gun until you're 18, but you can possess a gun if you are doing specific tasks like hunting, target practice, training, things like that, right? It's basically like temporary possession. So handguns, they passed a law saying that they're outlawed until you're 21. So you can't own a handgun until you're 21. Sorry, man, I keep messing this up. Let me get this right. You cannot purchase a handgun until you're 21 federally, but you can possess a handgun at 18.
Yeah.
So somebody else buys it for you, transfers it to you, then you can own that legally, right?
Yep.
Which is really odd because if you're trying to prevent, certain people from owning, or you're trying to have a better hold on who's got access to weapons, it seems that like you would want to require them to go to a licensed dealer, right? Who's doing an accurate background check.
Yeah.
But in this case, you force them to go through an unlicensed dealer, such as you or I, and all it simply says is use your judgment to determine that this person can legally possess a handgun.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, he's a good guy.
Yeah, they got it. So so that is the only law that exists federally where, a Second Amendment right for a handgun in this case is prevented for people 18 to 20, right?
Well, there's also so there's a buddy of mine. He actually bought an AR-15, and he bought the trigger that like spring return. So you kind of just have to maintain a constant pressure on the trigger, and it'll spring back and then come back, and it's kind of like an automatic rifle, right? So you can turn your semi-auto in base almost on auto with this special trigger assembly, and
stock, right?
Huh?
I mean, that's similar to a bump stock.
Yeah, very similar, right? And what he ended up doing when he was changing out the trigger assembly is he ended up ruining his original trigger assembly, and he couldn't install the new trigger assembly. So he purchased this AR-15, right? And he was going to swap out the triggers so he could go close to fully auto, and it broke, and he went to go buy a new original trigger assembly for his AR-15, and he couldn't. Like, it was illegal for someone under 21 to buy this trigger assembly for an AR-15. So what he ended up doing was going to just buy a brand new AR-15 that had the trigger assembly already on it, because it was legal to buy a brand new AR-15, but it was illegal because of his age to buy just the trigger assembly for his AR-15. Super weird. I didn't understand it at all.
Well, that's kind of the loophole that'll so right now they're talking about the big push is to is to outlaw bump stocks, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna outlaw stocks, right? But if you manufacture a weapon that has a built-in, that's still outlawing bump stocks, or it basically just depends on what the legislation actually states in the wording, right? I mean, it's much like any procedure, or OSHA requirement that you read, right? Like, what's the interpretation and what does it actually say, right? The intent doesn't always match what the you know
The
what the
wording.
wording is, what the
Yeah.
literature is. So, um, yeah, man, I think it'll be interesting. I totally I see what Andy's saying in that, hey, like we can limit uh, people under 21 from drinking alcohol, right? We can limit people under 18 from smoking tobacco. I think that the argument is accepted that 18 is an adult, right? Making an argument that you can't own a type of gun, handgun included, which that's heavily debated in lower courts. Um, there's a dissenting opinion, and it was won by a slim majority, or upheld by a slim majority, right? And the NRA actually appealed to the Supreme Court to try to get that overturned. The Supreme Court just hasn't heard it. So now you have handguns at 21. You have a private company, setting a rule that they're not going to sell to people that are under 21, even though the law says that anyone over 18 can own, right? So we're not even talking legislation. We've crossed the path, right? And the relationship I draw to that is, can you is there a similarity to the bakery that refused to bake a cake for a gay couple because they believed it was against their religious, it was against their religious beliefs.
Yeah, their
So they
values.
chose not to make it, right? But that's religious. That's sexuality discrimination, right?
Yeah.
So will it fall under the same idea? Is I guess what, and the most contradictory part of that, in my opinion, is that you will allow people to serve in the military, right? 17 with a waiver or 18, right?
Yeah.
And these people are 18 serving, 20, up to 20 serving, and they can't own a handgun, but they're required to be proficient, and in my opinion, more proficient at shooting a weapon than most of the civilians that you have.
Yeah.
So then, do you make an exception for those that are military members or specifically trained? And if that's the case, then like, why can't civilians be go and get this specific training if they pay for it? And I'm very interested to see where it goes, because I don't think it's going to solve the issue anyway, right? I mean, this last shooter the Florida shooter was what, 19? But how old have all the other high school shooters been? I mean, are they all over the age of 18? Or did they have access to weapons even though they weren't of legal age to own and possess?
Yeah, you look at Columbine. I mean, one of the more infamous ones from the the 90s or whatever. Yeah, those were just kids. They weren't adults at all, and they acquired those weapons, from their houses, or I believe it's from their houses. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, it's just so intricate, and I know we're getting into the weeds on this, so we can swap topics for sure, because if you go for days and everybody's got their own personal thing. I totally agree that it's an issue, but then you start getting so you bring up this kind of discussion to people that think that a gun ban is the way to go, or my argument is that there's a mental health issue, and we need to figure out a practical way to address it in the meantime of trying to figure out how to provide a cultural shift for the country in the way that we attack mental health, right? So, in my opinion, right, if you set a system up similar to the military, right? So, if you're on antidepressants, any type of mind-altering drug, right?
Yeah.
You would get denuked, right? You can't stay on submarines if that's the case.
Dude, you get denuked for all sorts of weird shit.
Yeah, but like you take Ambien because you have trouble sleeping, like that's a narcotic. Boom, you're off of subs, you're denuked. So
What's weird about that though is a lot of dudes in like power school and A school or whatever. I remember them taking Ambien and shit. But yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, they
Yeah,
will kick
I
your
I
ass
can
out for
recall.
all kinds of weird fucking substance issues.
Yeah, I can recall a specific member getting out. He they diagnosed a specific sleep disorder, and they said, the option is to decline to take the narcotic and remain submarine active, or to, you know, start taking it. But they deactivated him on they what did they actually do? They disqualified him submarines, and then I believe that they disqualified him as a new. So I maybe I need to fact check myself, but I guess in my opinion, right, like the if you're taking a mind altering drug, right, sleep medication is a little bit different, I think, except for the fact that there are very serious side effects of it. But like an antidepressant, right? You take an antidepressant. Well, if you're taking an antidepressant, one of the side effects could be that you have an increase in suicidal thoughts, and you may already have them, and that's why you're taking the antidepressant, trying to figure things out, right? Like, should you be able to own a gun during that period of time, right? Mass shootings account for 1% of the homicides, right? But suicides account for a considerable amount more, right? So if you said, hey, like you expanded this umbrella of if you're taking something, or they die, you're talking to a psychiatrist, right? Something of that sort, and the psychiatrist feels that it's a necessity to report, and they report it, then you go into the database, the same database that you would if you get reviewed by a state board, or if you get admitted to a mental hospital for 6 months.
Or have
And
some
all
kind
it
of record.
means, yeah, and all it means is like, hey, the background check says no, like you can't own this weapon. So the gun store says, look, we don't know why, but it's this. Like you need to go to the police station. The police station can dive into it and say, okay, you were told no based on this. Like, and then you set up a waiver, right? Like you apply for a waiver, and say like, hey, I'm not actually on antidepressants anymore. Like I was, but I'm cleared. Or yeah, like I need to get reviewed because I'm on antidepressants, but I'm not suicidal. All these different. But you basically are reviewed by a board, and they say like, yep, you're cleared. You can own a weapon, right?
Yeah.
That I think, I don't know, right? You're still technically infringing on someone's right to own a weapon and protect themselves. But I guess, man, I just, I don't know. I don't know where the shit goes. I don't know where the argument goes from there, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. It's pretty new right now, the whole Walmart thing. I think that a lot of talk will be, coming up, and Facebook will, do the thing, and then all the news anchors will cover it, and we'll figure out where it goes from here.
yeah,
Like all
yeah,
bullshit.
I agree, man. I mean, it's I can't help but correlate it to like an argument of, all right, well, what's the difference of saying I'm not going to sell a weapon to somebody that's under 21? What's the difference in saying like, all right, well, I'm not going to sell a gun to anybody that's autistic, right? Because
Yeah,
the Florida shooter was found to be autistic, right? So, hey, I mean, if you're autistic, you can't you can't own a gun, you can't defend yourself. Like the Second Amendment right doesn't apply to you, right? And it all comes down to like how the Supreme Court determines to if they choose to hear it first, but then it comes down to whether or not they believe in the individual right or the collective right.
yeah,
Legally everybody should have the right, but from a collective idea, if the opinion could be that somebody that is on antidepressants who can't serve in the military would not provide a benefit to a well-regulated militia, right? So that's the same reason why they outlawed sawed-off shotguns.
yeah, yeah. Hey, if you like this stuff and want to hear more, let us know. Hit us up, like it, subscribe. We'll do our part.